Hello, and thanks for joining us for Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration. I'm your host, Alexis Avila, educator, online entrepreneur, and founder of tutoring and test prep firm Prepped and Polished, broadcasting today live from beautiful South Natick, Massachusetts. Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration is your destination for groundbreaking insight from today's most influential educators, leaders, and minds on the planet. Get to know the Prepped and Polished community. You can find us on Facebook at Prepped and Polished, as well as Twitter at Prepped Polished. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Joining our show today is Rick Muhr. Rick is a running coach, speaker, and writer at themarathonsolution.com. Rick's journey started in West Virginia, and he's now based in Grafton, Massachusetts. Rick has a BA in Business Administration and Marketing. Since college, Rick has completed over 30 marathons and has a marathon personal record of 2 hours and 33 minutes. For 12 years, Rick was head coach for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's team and training program, and for the past several years has led and trained the Marathon Coalition, which is a group of 15 Boston Athletic Association-sponsored charities. Over the years, Rick's marathon teams have raised millions of dollars for charity. We're grateful to have Rick on our show. He's going to share with us his story on how he got into running and fundraising, and we'll learn more about his motto, which is, true greatness is not what we accomplish ourselves, but what greatness we inspire in others. And to our listeners, you can submit a question at any time at radio@preppedandpolished.com. We always appreciate hearing from you. Okay, Rick, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Alexis.
Great. So, Rick, usually I start out with just a light question, but can you just tell us something you think most people don't know about West Virginia?
Oh, that's a great question. West Virginia is one of the most beautiful states in the country, and I would say one of the more beautiful areas in the world. I've traveled both, and when I grew up there, I didn't realize it, but having traveled extensively, I've gone back and really enjoy it. I think that's a pretty good lesson for most people. Wherever they live, they should really take advantage of and appreciate the beauty surrounding them.
Oh, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into running.
Well, when I was a senior in high school, I looked at college. I came from a family of 13 kids, and it wasn't the most viable option for me at the time, so I thought I would go into the military and begin my college coursework there, which is what I did. And I went into the Special Forces, and my recruiter suggested that I run to get into shape for boot camp, which I did, and discovered that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I could run much farther than I ever expected, and that's how my running career began.
Wow. And you kept it up ever since. It's pretty amazing. Who were some of your influences growing up, Rick?
Ironically, friends, parents, and coaches and teachers were probably the three greatest sources of support and inspiration. I was raised in a broken home and didn't have the best role models within my family, so I looked elsewhere, and that's where I found my support and inspiration.
Gotcha. And tell us a little bit about how you got started with coaching and teaching what you've learned through your running.
Yes. My coaching career actually resulted out of a tragedy. In 1996, my then 57-year-old mother was diagnosed with leukemia, and I was living here in Grafton, Massachusetts, and she was in Minnesota, so I raced to the Mayo Clinic to be with her, not realizing that it would be the last time I would see her alive. But I did have a once-in-a-lifetime conversation with her about so much that took place in our lives. And one of the resonant interactions with her was my commitment to live my life in a very significant way. And that's what I committed to, and I gave the eulogy at her funeral and then flew back to New England and did the only thing that I knew to begin the grieving process, and that was to run a marathon in her memory in Rhode Island. And serendipitously, from the very beginning, I noticed signs for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's team and training program, and I felt that was my calling. I spoke with the executive director the following day and told her about my running background and my commitment to my mother. And that began my coaching career. I coached for them, as you mentioned earlier, for 12 years. And during that 12 years, with the help of a lot of people, we raised over $65 million for leukemia research in New England.
Wow. That's a really big number. When someone thinks about running a marathon but sees it as a daunting task that's impossible to achieve, what would you say to that person?
Well, that's a natural response to anything as significant as running 26.2 miles or completing a college education or a graduate degree. But with all things significant, you can't be overwhelmed by it. You need to be inspired by it. And I think the best way to do that is to just break it down and realize that you're not going to have to go out and run 26.2 miles tomorrow, but you prepare for it by running shorter distances and just gradually increasing. And I think that applies to anything significant.
Absolutely. One thing that I find fascinated by you is, you seem to never age. What makes you tick, Rick? I mean, I know a lot of people in your cohort who just seem to kind of coast. They kind of, they work their jobs and, they work out once in a while. But there you are, you get up in the morning and it just seems like you have as much passion as you did the day before. Have you always been that way, or is this something that you learn?
I think even early in life, I had a desire to be better every day. I saw my siblings doing things that I didn't want to do, and I actually learned lessons from others' mistakes and lack of motivation and lack of focus. And I remember from an early age, I was always very focused and ambitious and motivated. And it seems as I've gotten older, the fires burn greater, which is wonderful. And that's a real anomaly. I think most people at a certain age in life, I'm going to be 56 soon, I look around at people my age and they just seem so consumed by the day-to-day details of living life and never really step back and look at life from 50,000 feet. And I do that every day and live by a mantra of getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. I try to live outside my comfort zone, which obviously goes against the grain of what most people do, but I've realized that's truly where life is lived. And every day is a new beginning. I'm constantly in a self-assessment mode, trying to figure out what I'm doing well, but more importantly, what I'm not doing so well, and focusing on that because I realize that I've learned more from my disappointments and failures and shortcomings than I have any of my successes. So when I hit a valley in my life, I don't try to run from it. I embrace it, whether it's a loss of a job or an argument with a friend or any other disappointment or setback. I embrace it. And that's the thing that I think has kept me young. I'm fully engaged in life.
Absolutely. In fact, I remember listening in on one of your speeches last year during the marathon preparation, or maybe it was 2 years ago, when you might have lost a job in a sales position, and you didn't hang your head one bit about it. You said right to a group of hundreds of runners that you're going to get a better job, and it's going to happen today.
Yeah.
And that was pretty amazing.
And that's how it turned out. I think to a large degree, we control our own destiny with our attitude. Attitude,
yeah. Your motto is profound on many levels. If you go to the Marathon Solution, themarathonsolution.com, and check out Rick's blog, you'll see his motto, bright as day, saying, "True greatness is not what we accomplish ourselves, but what greatness we inspire in others." Is this something that you believed in when you were, 10 years old in West Virginia, or is this something that you developed later in life? And can you tell us a little bit about that motto, what that means to you?
Yes, that's a great question. It is not something that I developed early in life or had early in life. It's something that came about from my coaching charity runners for the past 18 years. When I began coaching, so much focus was on my background, what I've accomplished. And in the beginning, I think that tends to happen whether you're a college professor or a counselor, whomever. People look at your credentials. But it didn't take me long to realize that nothing that I could accomplish myself would ever give me the satisfaction or sense of accomplishment as helping someone else, especially someone who may not believe in themselves, accomplish something that they never imagined. And one day I was just reflecting on my coaching and tried to come up with a tagline that captured the essence, and you've mentioned it. True greatness is not what we accomplish ourselves, but greatness that we inspire in others. That is so true. I also learned that nothing significant in life is ever accomplished alone. And for most of my life, because I couldn't rely on too many people, I developed into a person that couldn't rely on anyone and couldn't trust anyone. And then after I started coaching, I realized that I had to rely on a lot of people, that running truly is a team sport, particularly in the charity world.
Absolutely. Rick, you have one of many hobbies, and recently, and I wouldn't even call this a hobby, when you motorcycle across the United States, it's more of like a way of life. But can you just tell the audience a little bit about what you just achieved going to the four corners of the United States on your motorcycle?
Yes, it was a 12,000-mile motorcycle trip circumnavigating the United States, and I did that in 14 days. So it was an extreme accomplishment, something that I dreamed about from an early age, and realized that waiting for retirement to accomplish things is no way to live. So I took the time out of a very busy life to chase that goal. And I had to ride to the extreme four corners of the United States, beginning in Madawaska, Maine, on the Canadian border, riding down to Key West, Florida, and then west to San Diego, and then north up to Blaine, Washington. And in the midst of that, I set a very compelling record, which was from Jacksonville, Florida, cross country to San Diego, California, nonstop in 40 hours and 35 seconds. So I stayed awake that entire time.
Wow. Were you planning to do that, or was that just kind of you pushed through in the moment?
Well, I wanted to ride cross-country in under 50 hours. That's really a benchmark achievement in the ultra-distance endurance motorcycle community. And so I had a plan to stop just after Austin, Texas, for 6 hours. And I calculated that would allow me enough rest to recharge my batteries to still make it under 50 hours. But like most things that I approach, I like to test my limit. And I decided to forego that 6-hour rest break, and I just rode through.
Wow. And you're alive to tell the tale, which I'm very happy about. That's quite an accomplishment. Coach, the 2013 Boston Marathon ended abruptly in tragedy. A lot of people are struggling, runners and non-runners, with the upcoming marathon, April 22nd. For someone struggling with this, what everybody has their own advice, but I'm sure you have your own thoughts. But what would you offer for someone struggling with what's coming in April 22nd?
Yes. I think it goes back to something I said earlier, which is, when we have setbacks and failures and disappointments, we tend to move away from them rather than embrace them. And I think particularly in this case, we have to embrace the emotions that we're feeling, whether they're fear, anger. And I always encourage people to seek professional help. There can be a stigma in our society that if you go see a psychologist or a psychiatrist that you're weak, and that isn't true. Our spirits could be broken, no different than a bone. And if we were to break a bone, we would go to a doctor and have that fixed. And we need to do the same thing with our emotions and our spirits. And so, first of all, I just suggest that people reach out and ask for help. And runners in particular, I think, tend to be pretty independent and think they can overcome anything on their own. But in this case, I don't think that's true. I think there's strength in numbers and strength in communication. And the best part of the healing, I think, is going to take place on April 21st when we run the Boston Marathon. And I think these runners from all over the world, 36,000 of them, will realize what the people of New England are all about, and they show up in force. And it's always been very exciting to take a right on Hereford and then a left on Boylston and see the Boston Marathon finish line. That is Mecca for a marathoner. I think it's going to be the safest place in the world. I think it's more importantly going to be the most exciting and inspirational place in the world on that day. And I don't think many people are going to heal completely until they cross the finish line and complete a journey that they were tragically prevented from completing last year.
Absolutely. And we all know that you certainly will be there to support the runners, and that's really encouraging.
Yes.
How can we find you, Rick? How can we work with you, find your writings? Go plug yourself, please.
Well, certainly if you were to Google my name, Rick Muhr, M-U-H-R, there's plenty of information there. My running blog is themarathonsolution.com. There is also a Facebook page. I have my own personal Facebook page, but I also have a Facebook page for my coaching business, which is Marathon Coalition, and that's easy to find on Facebook. And people are always welcome to contact me directly through my email address, which is Rick M, as in Mary, BMW, like the motorcycle, @gmail.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Rick. We really appreciate you coming on. And this wraps up our show today with Rick Muhr, running coach, speaker, and writer at themarathonsolution.com. Please visit themarathonsolution.com to learn more about Rick and what he does. Thank you for joining us on Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration.